You ever stop to think about your foot pegs? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I certainly haven't. But I came across these, and they're so revolutionary that I might actually start carrying. You know, foot pegs were never really on the radar for me as something to upgrade on my bike personally. I never really saw the point, although I get it, don't get me wrong. I can see why someone might want to actually upgrade their foot pegs. Things like traction, maybe a wider foot pad, or even some of those one-off out there features like sliders if you have a supermoto like me, or if you want to get one of those weird ones with the foot pegs for your foot pegs. That is until, however, I discovered these ones from Motion Racing. Now, Motion Racing makes foot pegs that have one of those crazy one-off features like I mentioned before, but this one in particular, the more I learned about it, the more I thought to myself, how come no one else is making a design like this? This is a design that I can genuinely get behind. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's actually first take off the stock pegs here, so that way we can put them up side by side and see what I'm talking about. And we'll get started with the brake side, because this one, I might actually have to move this brake lever. I don't know whether or not it's gonna actually clear that. Might not, so might as well start with the hard part first. There we go. Oh, so close. There we go. A little annoying, but not terrible. All right, so we got the stock pegs here, and let's open up the new ones from Motion Racing so you can see what I'm on about. This is the flex mount system from Motion Racing. So basically what that means is that this foot peg can move independently from the frame. What it does is it will actually be able to tilt forward or backward depending on your foot, so you can have constant contact as you move around on the bike. So flexibility is not this foot peg's only feature. As you can see right here and right here, there's actually a couple of bolts. What that means is this is completely disassemblable. Disassemblable, is that a word? What it means is if something breaks or you want to change it out, you don't have to buy a whole new foot peg, you just have to buy the individual pieces. You can even get different foot peg profiles if you prefer. This is their standard trail size, and it's actually basically about the same height and just a little bit wider profile. But they have things like Adventure Spec, which actually makes them a little bit longer if you prefer. Also, when it comes to adjustability is this right here, the bushing. Every set of these foot pegs that you get actually comes with 3 different sized bushings for different firmness. What they have on here is a 90, I don't exactly remember what the specs are on that, but it's 90A, whatever that means. For those of you that ride skateboards, I'm sure you understand. But they also come with a firmer 95 and a softer 80. So you can make these as flexible or as inflexible as you prefer. So at initial glance, this looks to be a pretty phenomenal product, and personally, I think this would really benefit me because I do actually have some ankle damage in both of my ankles, but maybe with the movement in this, it won't give me as much fatigue in my ankles and that I won't feel as much pain over a long ride. Only negative I can really see, potentially at least, is the traction on this. As you can see here, there are a couple of bolts that stick up on this to provide as foot traction, so keep your boot or your foot actually on the peg while you're riding. And it's, you know, there's not as much as you would expect, especially compared to something like this stock one. Granted, these are bolts and not just little pieces of cutout metal like this one, but these, there's like, what, 19 different little pegs, spikes right here to keep your foot on the peg. Although with me, I ride on the street for the most part, so I'm not really looking for something that's super traction-y. I don't really need that when I'm on the asphalt as opposed to the dirt. But I'm curious to see how these actually feel and how much they move. So let's throw this thing on the bike and see what it looks like. Should be pretty easy, install being the reverse of removal. We just gotta place our spring in here and slot this in. Where's my persuasion stick? Ooh, sorry clutch cover. Just a couple more wackaroonies. Ow! There it is. Last but not least, definitely don't want to forget this step. You gotta put the washer on and a cotter pin. I got a freshie right here. There we go. Success. Well, I'll be honest, that took a lot longer than anticipated. This side, as you saw, piece of cake, couple minutes maximum. It's the other side, the shifter side, that really gave me a lot of trouble. First of all, the foot peg itself was a little bit wider than the bracket, so I did have to shave it down a little bit. No big deal. But then when I did shave it down and actually fit it to the bracket and get everything lined up and in there, that's when I discovered that The stopper on the foot peg, I think, just had too much material. It was not lining up with the bracket, so it was looking like it wasn't fully down and bent at an angle. It was clear that you can see that compared to the brake side. So I had to do more shaving, actually quite a bit of shaving on that stopper on the foot peg, and going back and forth, shaving off a little bit at a time to make sure that everything finally would line up with the brake side. Okay, popping in here because I filmed all of that a few weeks ago, and when I discovered that that was the issue, I emailed Motion Factory Racing directly and let them know what I discovered. They were super happy to get this information, and we had a bit of a back and forth, and actually discovered that it wasn't that there was too much material on the stopper portion of the foot peg, but it was actually that the bracket for the CRF 450 RL on the shifter side actually has a bit of a taper to it. So as a result of that, they decided to actually chamfer all of the CRF mounts in their entire inventory, so this is not going to be a problem going forward. I also want to point out that their communication throughout this has been top notch. They were providing responses within seconds of me hitting send on my emails and constantly providing me updates, and we're always super appreciative of the fact that they got this information so that they can make their product better. And I was able to secure a discount code. So if you're interested in picking up some of these yourself, when you go to checkout, use the code LEXDFOX, that's LEXDFOX, to get 10% off your entire order. But now that it's all said and done, they're all mounted and level, we can actually see these things in action. And you can see right here that flex a little bit right there. That's what I'm talking about, that forward and backwards motion. It's much easier to see, of course, when you put your foot on the pegs and actually throw your full weight forwards and backwards. You can really feel that difference. And more so when you actually change out the bushings. These ones are the 90s, they're the middle weight. You can see the difference here and feel the difference really, especially with the 80s, the really soft ones. It feels like you move a lot more with it. The 95, on the other hand, was a lot stiffer and not much movement at all, a little bit, but it's a lot more fixed, something that you would more expect with any other given foot peg that you're looking to upgrade with. And speaking of the different bushings, it's really easy to install any new ones. Basically, all you have to do is just loosen this bolt. It's an 8mm hex. Just like that, it comes off with the bolt, and then you just kind of squeeze it out like so. Then you can swap in a new one if you choose. Push it back on the bolt, and then just thread it back in. I will say make sure that you thread it in appropriately. Don't cross thread it because this is under pressure a little bit from the foot peg, so just keep that in mind. If it doesn't go in smoothly, don't force it. Otherwise, whatever bushing you had in there, that's staying in there forever. All right, let's try these things out. See how it feels, or mostly see how different it feels, if anything. I actually don't even know if I'm going to be able to tell the difference, but we'll find out. All right, so I haven't gone very far, but already, and this is thanks to the roads in my neighborhood, which are notoriously full of potholes and all sorts of stuff. It's absolutely horrendous. But with that, I've noticed that I'm not feeling as much vibration in my feet as I normally would be. It's really weird, actually. It's kind of disorienting a little bit, because this bike, being a single cylinder thumper, it's very vibrating. I mean, all dirt bikes and dual sports are, but having such a vibrating bike, which I could feel everywhere. I could feel it in the handlebars, I could feel it in the seat, I could feel it on the sides, in my legs, but I'm not feeling it as much in my feet. So not only does the bushing allow for some tilt backwards and forwards, but it also allows for some vibration damping. All right, let's try standing up. It's almost like the pegs are kind of encouraging you to stay on the balls of your feet. It wants to dip forward, and so it makes it feel like you're just kind of, you're leaned forward. And maybe that's to do with like attack position, you know, what they teach you in motocross and off-road. You got to be well over the handlebars, you know, full weight forward to keep traction on the front wheel. I don't really think any of that has any advantages on the street though, so maybe we should find some dirt. Oh, hey look, dirt. Wow, this really helps with the vibration damping on this. Holy cow. This insane washboard. I mean, could you see that? I am not feeling any of this in my feet. Okay, maybe now a little bit. My whole body's shaking and my feet are like, what are you talking about? I'll try not to splash the minivan. I splashed the minivan. That's the ticket. Speed! Now, traction-wise, I don't really know if there's a difference between this and the stock one, honestly. I mean, I'm on street boots. I'm not in motocross boots. And this is not terrible. I mean, it's very washboard, but I'm not getting bucked around enough that my feet are flying off the pegs. I've ridden this with stock pegs and I didn't have that case either, so who's to tell really at this point. I could see now, being off-road, why it's encouraging you to lean forward a little bit more and it dips forward as opposed to dips backward. It really does encourage you to put your weight forward and really hug the front end of the bike. Feels really nice. All right, that was fun. Yeah, these are pretty awesome. Not only do they provide a solid platform with just enough flex in such a way that you're not going to overextend your ankle on the off-road, but also some much needed vibration damping when it comes to on-road. Like I said earlier, I never really considered foot peg technology to be anything that was really worthy of an upgrade, but having experienced this flex mount system, it is well worth a try. But don't just take my word for it. Go check out their website, motionfactoryracing.com, where you can see that they make these for pretty much any dual sport and dirt bike that you can think of, including pit bikes, and even some e-bikes. And if you decide to pull the trigger on one of these things, then don't forget to use the code LEXDFOX, LEXDFOX at checkout and get 10% off your order. Helps the channel, helps Motion Factory Racing, and helps you get some awesome foot pegs.